morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on what time zone you're in or what time you're watching this video. Today we are back, this time with Sick Boy. I actually heard this come up in my Spotify playlist through the radio, and it was, wow, it was so good. So I'm really excited to check out the video. But I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's shown so much support and so much love. I was trying to keep up with all the comments, but I found it ended up becoming kind of very, very obsessive for me. So I had to pull back a little bit. So I apologize for that. But man, all the love and all the just the community, just the connectedness that we're getting in that is just amazing. And I hope we can keep that going. So honestly, shout out to everyone. I love you guys. I love anyone who's watched this video. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I hope that it keeps getting better, and I hope that your week keeps getting better, and then your month, and then your year, and then so on and so forth. And if it doesn't, you know what? Well, we're all here for you. So always have that in your heart. But without further ado, we are taking on a different style. So someone had actually recommended that we watch the video first and just let it all play through, and then we go back and dissect. And I think that's kind of a cool style, so I want to try that out. So we'll try that out here and see how it goes. Cool. Without further ado, Sick Boy by Ren.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for seeing me.
Looking at your file here, it seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your physical body. Have you ever heard of the trauma response?
I don't think so.
Basically, our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop. Our subconscious can repeat patterns from the past, which can have a pretty drastic downstream effect on our biology.
So frustrating.
Essentially, your mind is making music.
Sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids, damn cell, poster boy, pass out, white noise, quick fix, snake oil, I'm about to break boy. Oh, what a shame, he's in pain, have another go, take another pill, here, take a couple more, let's see how you're doing in another week or so, you'll be feeling worse when the side effects will show, derealization, medical patient, losing patience with the process, walking hand in hand with Satan, complications with the medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground, I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound, I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. What I propose we do is we try to pinpoint the exact experiences from the past that are keeping you stuck. What can you tell me about your childhood?
I can't really think.
It's okay if nothing comes up right away.
What
I'd like you to do is take some deep breaths with me.
Oh my God.
In and out.
Such a smart choice for that.
In and out. Good. Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit. I'm not sick, we are sick. We are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice. I'm not sick, I'm the virus, you're the virus hypocrite. How can you sit there with that smile on and tell me that I'm sick? Sick boy, looking for a fix boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the big boy. Record label meetings that commodify your gift boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? Fuck no, industry is cutthroat. I've been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke, walking on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. Rape the earth of all resources and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. But when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck will remain? And I'm bleeding myself, I bleed in my brain. While I'm bleeding, I'm the reason, cause I'm doing the same.
Oh, friggin' heck. With a video that's even crazier. Holy smokes. Okay, let's go back and break it down. If you want my TLDR, this is doing something so smart, because now we're starting to blend the idea of like the people are supposed to be helping us with our darkness, but then it's almost like our darkness is becoming the person that is saying the right things. And what he's kind of getting at with that is that we're going against society's expectations, and that's why it's called the dark side, right? Because realistically, morals are based on perception, right? Society's morals are based off of what we understand from society. And so he's taken that and kind of run with that idea, saying that what we're kind of expected to do is actually really so evil, and that the evil in us is almost now starting to sound like the right voice, so that whenever we try to start doing something that goes against the grain, it's actually something that might be good to do for the world or for ourselves. And yet, because it's frowned upon, we feel like we're the ones doing something wrong. Damn, holy fire. Okay, man, the video adds such a crazy layer to this. Holy smokes. Okay, so now we'll get into the edit section. Just so you know, for future videos, if we keep this pattern, I'll have like a timestamp at the bottom. I should have said this at the start of the video, but clearly I'm not very good at this. We'll have a timestamp at the bottom that leads us to this point, so you can just skip ahead if you've seen the song already and you don't want to watch that again. So feel free to do that next time. I'll make a note of that as well next time. Well, let's start off. That's also like, this is a breathing technique. So this is actually a breathing technique where you try to control your breath, and it almost sounds like he's out of breath now, and he's trying to kind of keep himself almost sane. One thing I want to note is it's almost like, this is almost like that room he was in before. It's not quite the same. I think it looks a little different. That could be a couple things. One is we're in different sections of his mind, right? We're in different sections of his mental experience. Or two, he's in a different point of time in his life. Or just three, like the rooms actually represent emotions. You know what I mean? And there's so many different possibilities for this, which even that in and of itself, choosing to kind of leave that up to us is such a smart choice, because now we can experience this the way that we personally experience this. And that's such an important touch, because now we're going introspective on the song before it's even started. We're saying, well, where is this? What does this mean? That's so smart. And the light in the back too, just, oh man, it's right above the mirror, because you're constantly self-reflecting. So that's where the light is. So you're always looking in the mirror, trying to see, what am I like now? And the sick boy right above him, it's almost like it's a label on him, right? That's the label that he feels hanging over his head quite literally all the time. And his head's down, he's upset because of what his experiences have been. And I've done a little bit more reading on Ren, and I just like looking into his experiences, finding out that he had ultimately he had been bitten by a tick and got Lyme disease, and no one could figure out what it was. And so he constantly was always sick and didn't know why. And so this is him. This is the label that he had over his head. It's sick boy, because no one knows what it is, but that's what he is. He's the sick boy, right? And it's such, that's so much, like, there's so much courage in that, because it's so vulnerable to put that in the video, to title the song with that, and then to have that hanging over your head like a label. It's like taking your worst experience and then just putting it on show for everyone to see. And that's what's special about Ren. He takes his pains, he takes his sorrows, and he takes every experience he's had, and he gives it to us. He lets us experience it for the sake of helping us through our dark times. Insane.
Hi, Ren. Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for seeing me.
Right there, he's like building up the anger, the frustration, the emotions. They're getting bubbly and bubbly and bubbly, almost to the surface. But then when he sits down at the chair, he's gotta act normal. Right? So he kind of goes, oh, hey, yeah, thanks for seeing me. And it's almost like that's how the experience is. This is how a lot of people kind of treat day-to-day life, right? We're experiencing some sort of emotion or trauma or pain or something that's suffering, right? But we don't necessarily talk about it, because when we see other people, we're like, hey, yeah, we're okay. You know, I'm fine. How often have you found yourself saying, when someone says, hey, how are you doing? You're like, I'm fine. How are you? Even though you might be having like one of the worst days in the world. You might be having anxiety. You might be stressed. You might be experiencing some sort of crazy hard event in your life or time in your life. And you don't talk about it because you don't want to super burden other people. You kind of taper it down. And this is what I'm assuming is his doctor, right? And even with them, he's kind of trying to keep himself in check. And part of it is because he's frustrated at the doctors. So, but he doesn't want to lash out on them. So he has to kind of contain it all into this monotone, kind of reared back version of himself.
At your file here, it seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your physical body. Have you ever heard of the trauma response?
I don't think so.
Basically, our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop. Our subconscious can repeat patterns from the past, which can have a pretty drastic downstream effect on our biology. Essentially, your mind is making you sick.
Okay, couple things to break down there. One is saying interplay between the body and the mind, right? Think of all the words that are being used here. One, if you're not someone who's super familiar with a lot of psychological terms, you're not really going to understand necessarily everything that's being said, right? A lot of it almost goes over your head. Two, the doctor is saying a lot of this in a monotone way, right? Because it's almost like they're detached from the situation. And this is not to blame doctors, because a lot of the time, if you try to attach yourself to every situation, every person you're going to see, that will take a toll on you that's insane, right? Because think of how many people, how many patients lose, or sorry, how many doctors lose their patients over time. Psychologists, like just medical doctors in general. And if you were to kind of put all of your emotions into every visit, every patient, that would probably be one of the biggest emotional burdens. So they do have to somewhat detach. But this is also the experience that Ren had, where it's like people are just telling him what they think it is and not really caring about a situation, right? So it's the way that we perceive it, but then it's also kind of the way that it is and the way that it has to be for some to some degree. And that's what we're seeing. But she says basically like your subconscious is ultimately what's causing you to feel this way, right? It's trying to convince you that your mind is sick and that's making your body sick. And for someone who's dealing with Lyme disease, it does seem that way. There's not a lot of ways to diagnose Lyme disease. So for him, for a long time, this was the answer he got because no one could figure out what it was. And so to him, that was the reason. And so now all of a sudden it makes sense to us why he would be like, you know, like visiting a psychiatrist so much, trying to get it sorted out, trying to get his mind sorted out. In a weird way, the experience probably helped him kind of cultivate his mind and learn how to deal with a lot of different things. But the trauma that his body experiences is a whole other avenue. And then the last thing I just want to touch on, right at the end there, she said it's making you sick, right? That sick, because like when you go to the doctor, if you're being told a lot of jargon, and then all of a sudden you hear the word sick, that's what resonates with you, right? That's what sticks. It echoes, and that's kind of what we see quite literally in the video. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're hearing, right? It's that echo of the word sick, and that's what's stuck in your head now. So when you leave that office, that's all you can think about. You're the sick boy. And that's what he felt the whole time. And that's why we're back here, because now he feels alone. He feels like there's no one that can help him. He's just the sick boy with the label, right? And that's what it is. And that's where we're at. He's huddled. He's scared. He doesn't know what to do. All he's been told is basically his mind is hurting him. And this almost goes back to Hyran, when he was having that conversation with his own dark side, saying basically like, you're ruining my life. And the dark side was like, I'm not ruining your life. What are you talking about? It almost gives some validity to that, which we kind of see down the road in this video, right? It wasn't even his mind necessarily doing it. It was actually his body, because he had Lyme disease and it was undiagnosed. That is such a clever way also just to show the patient experience and what you actually leave with from a visit to the doctor sometimes, where like you're told all these things, you're trying to process them, but they're throwing out these words that you don't even necessarily know the meaning. You never really had any experience with this before, and then at the end it's just you're sick. And that's what you're left with, because that's really the hard-hitting version of the truth for you at that time. And so that's what he's feeling right now, and that's why he feels alone and isolated again, because as soon as she said that, he's regressed, right? He's back in his mind like, oh, man, I'm the sick boy. I'm alone. Nothing can help me. It's my own mind against me. I don't know what to do. And that's what we're seeing here. Damn.
Pretty drastic downstream effect in our biology. Essentially, your mind is making you sick.
See that echo? Also, this chorus, this vocals. Wow, does that go hard? I don't know who produced this, but this is insane. This is so good. And that's his mind hurting himself, right? It's the very visual idea of him being told that his mind is hurting him. So his mind actively there, we're assuming the mind, it's almost like when you imagine what demons look like, right? Demons are like traditionally introduced as animalistic because they're supposed to be partly animal souls, I think. Not super well versed on the entire lore of demonology, but I believe. And so that's what we're seeing there, where it's the demonic side of his mind, the dark side of his mind, the devil in his mind that is actively killing him. That's what we just see, right? It's gonna be hard to kind of stop it, I think. There. I'm not going to stop it. It's impossible. But that's who's doing the damage, right? That's who's slicing through. It's his own mind, in his opinion now, because that's what he's been told. And so it feels like your own mind is attacking you, quite literally killing you. And so that's the representation of what they were saying, the trauma response. And now that's all he can think of. That's all he can think of. And he just gets more and more scared and frustrated.
Sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids.
Okay, so anabolic steroids are basically stuff that steroids are basically things that you take to bulk up, and anabolic steroids are exactly that. They're very close to like anabolic basically means to build up, and so they're steroids that build up muscle, essentially is what they are. And that's what he's been given, and so that's all he can think about. And this is the frustration that he's having. This is where it's coming out, right? He's getting it almost, you can almost see the dark side of Ren coming out here. But now I'm not entirely convinced that was the dark side of Ren, right? It's almost like id, ego, super ego, right? Part of your mind is always obsessed with trying to be perfect for society. Part of your mind is always trying to be perfect for yourself, trying to do what you want, your desires. And then the middle ground of your mind is where it kind of balances both. And so that's kind of, now I'm starting to think it's maybe more that angle, where this is the side of him that wants to say exactly what he's thinking and not even considering society. So this is kind of probably what he's thinking at the doctor's office, right? Or thinking when he's having this conversation, that it's not this is the frustration I'm experiencing. I want to now tell it all to you, but I can't. So this is just happening in my mind. And even if we think about it in terms of like a psychiatrist-patient relationship, this is probably how the conversation went during their visit, right? Ultimately, he might have said it in a much nicer way, but this is what he was trying to convey. And maybe it appears like he's being told like that's not how you're supposed to think. And so that's why we're hearing it like it's the dark side, but it's not even necessarily the dark side, right? Maybe it has a point, especially when we get later on in the song.
Boy, sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids, stem cell, poster boy, pass out, white noise, quick fix, snake oil, I'm about to break, boy.
I'm about to break. You can see him grab his head, and it's just the frustration. He doesn't know what to do with it anymore, especially because he called himself bitten by a tick boy. Now he understands that it was Lyme disease. This is almost like him getting out all of the frustration that he had when people kept saying, you're just a sick boy. You know what I mean? Because now that he knows what it is, he has an answer. And so he's angry that it had gotten this far and people just kept telling him it's you. I also like that on the table, we have two kind of, it's all white stuff except for her. She's wearing blue. That's almost like reminds you of exactly how like a mental patient ward would be, right? She's got a pen to write down notes, but like she hasn't really written anything yet. She's been reading a little bit. And then she's got pill bottles because she's ready to prescribe something to just take this instead. You don't have to worry about anything else. That's going to get you better because it's your mind. But now he knows that it was the tick that was the initial problem. And so this is his frustration now finally coming out, like that's what it was. How did you not realize? Just a little personal anecdote on this. I'm diabetic, and for when I was younger, a long time, I was misdiagnosed for a lot of different things. And when we found out what it actually was, I had a very similar experience where I was frustrated. I was like, how did you not know that's what it was? I was type 1 diabetic, so I was like maybe 9 at the time. I was 9.5 at the time. And as a child, to go through that, it was so frustrating. But he's gone through it for even longer, right? He's been experiencing this for so long. He was misdiagnosed for so long. And so of course there's this frustration towards the person who's been supposed to be helping you, but has not been helping you. In fact, they make you feel like it's your fault. Damn.
Poster boy, pass out. White noise, quick fix, snake oil. I'm about to break, boy. Oh, what a shame, he's in pain. Have another go. Take another pill. Here, take a couple more. Let's see how you're doing in another week or so. You'll be feeling worse when the side effects will show.
Oh, okay, yeah. So she's giving him the pill, saying, "Here, take this. Let's see how you're doing in a week. We'll figure it out. We'll nail it down. You don't need to worry. Just this'll fix everything." And then he starts getting dependent on that, and this kind of leads us to chalk outlines, which we've already listened to, but basically where he feels less of himself, right? He doesn't feel like himself, and he's still frustrated. You can see it on his face now. He's like, why do I have to keep taking this to feel better? That shouldn't be the way that it is. There should be something else. Maybe it's introspective, maybe it is my fault, but it wasn't his fault, and that's why he's so frustrated. And she says this in such a dry voice. It is so frustrating. Like, kudos to this woman. I don't know you, but I don't like this persona. I don't like you in this video. I'm sure you're probably a great person. Maybe. I have no idea. But like, you sold this character, and you can see like it's such a dichotomy between someone who's like, yeah, I'm going to talk to you like this, and someone else who's basically pouring their heart out. And you feel even worse for Ren, because it's like, yeah, this is how you felt. You felt unheard. You felt like you weren't being listened to. They just pushed a bottle on you and said, good luck. See how it feels in a week from now. If it's not feeling better, we got something else to try.
Realization, medical patient, losing patience with the process, walking hand in hand with Satan, complications with the medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration.
There's so much. I might have to listen to that again just to go back over it. But like, one of the things that he says there is medical patient losing patience, because he's losing patience in the process, because he's like, who am I supposed to turn to figure this out? Nothing is working. Does no one know how to help me? And that's what he's getting frustrated with. He also mentions walking hand in hand with Satan, because he's saying that basically he's being told that it's him doing it to himself. So he's literally holding hands with Satan, who we've already kind of seen in other videos is represented as the dark side of himself, right? It's the devil on your shoulder. So he's walking hand in hand with Satan, who's poisoning his own mind according to what he's being told. But he also says something else. He says information dehydration, which is like, dehydration is the loss of water, but in this case, information is quite literally the thing of life. Water is something you need to survive. Information is something you need to feel like you're alive, that you need to survive. And so he has felt dehydrated of that information for so long. And look at him now. He's looking at himself on the mirror like, please, what is happening? This should not be the way that I feel. And he's basically crying out now to himself, begging himself to fix, even though it's something that's physical. It's Lyme disease. Man, this is such a great representation of like misdiagnoses, but also the experience of not knowing how or when you find a way out, right? Yeah.
With the medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration. Drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown.
Oh, drown, sucker, drown. And he's looking at himself because he wants that part of him to die. He wants it to drown, but also because like it's almost like you're starting to think about, do I just let myself drown in all of this? Drown in all of these pills, these makeshift answers I'm getting? Do I just let myself drown in that and let that be my water? Let that be my information and just hope that they're right? Damn.
Inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration. Drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown, sucker, drown. I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. I've been screaming, I've been shouting.
I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. So he's not even in water, right? He's touching the ground. Or could it be that he's so deep in it that he's drowning in water? I think that actually might even be more accurate, that it feels so like surrounding him, all of this pain, this suffering, it's like drowning him in it, but he's so far below it now, he's so sunk into this pain, sunk into this suffering, that it's basically like his feet are touching the ground, he's still drowning, it's above his head, because he's starting to feel like he just can't take it anymore. Damn.
Sucker, drown. I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound. I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound. Because he's screaming and shouting on the inside, but it's probably not even like we don't deem it appropriate necessarily to share that pain sometimes, and so we don't, right? So internally he's been screaming and shouting, but he couldn't share that with anybody. He couldn't share that with his doctors even. He couldn't like express that even. Maybe that's what it is too. He couldn't fully express the way he's feeling. So it's just this aggravation, all of this frustration, and it's all like just this internal dialogue of screams and yells and pleading for a way out. But he can't share that.
This all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good.
Oh man, as a teacher, I see that all the time, and I feel like as soon as someone says, yeah, like I know right away, it does not make sense, not entirely. So more needs to be explained, right? And that's what's happening here. She's saying, does that make sense, Ren? So disconnected, and he's like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, sure, like yeah, I guess, right? It's so uncertain because it doesn't really make sense, and he knows it doesn't make sense, but it's a medical professional, so you have to assume it's correct, right? And so that's what you start thinking. And we saw later that the medical professional actually becomes the inner demon. So realistically, this could even be a conversation he's having with himself, where it's trying to convince him that he's okay. Oh man, there's so many layers to Ren's thoughts and Ren's ideas. This is so good, guys. Holy smokes.
A way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. What I propose we do is we try to pinpoint the exact experiences from the past that are keeping you stuck. What can you tell me about your childhood?
I can't really think.
It's okay if nothing comes up right away. What I'd like you to do is take some deep breaths.
Look how uncomfortable he is. He's like moving around in his seat, right? Because he doesn't know what to think. He's like, and he kind of almost at times like recedes into it, like goes down to the seat, because he just feels almost like a child, right? Like you feel so lost and so unsure that you're sinking into your seat, going lower because you feel almost insignificant in that sense. And that's what's happening here. He's grabbing onto the seat, just holding onto something because everything else feels like he's just losing it. So at least grab something to hold on to. It's so smart. And I love the way that she says good, like right after he says, is this making sense? Not really. Good. Like that's the almost the only time we hear her kind of be like happy-ish. And it's because as long as he says, yeah, like I get it, that's fine. That's all I need to know. Now from here on, I'm just going to continue, even though it's very clear he doesn't really get it. And now we're starting to see the blink in and out of the inner demon.
With me. In and out. In and out. Good. Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
That blink, like that kind of the blurriness of the camera as he starts breathing. It's because like even when he's taking these deep breaths, it's still not making sense, right? The world is still out of focus. The world still doesn't make entire sense, even though he's been given an idea of what it is. He's been given kind of an explanation. He's been told what to do, but he's internally, it's like I'm doing what you're saying, but I still don't really get it. It's kind of gone. And now the inner demon we see is kind of taking over the hot seat for a second, because he's starting to kind of bubble up again, right? And that's what's starting to happen here. He's starting to visualize them as the demon. He's starting to visualize them as the problem. And it's almost like maybe he's gaining understanding that this is not working. So what you're telling me is not helpful to me. Now you're the evil. Now you're the problem. You're the devil on my shoulder. Right? And that's what we're seeing here. And it could even be further than that. We could actually be talking to the devil on our shoulder, but I don't think that's quite what it is this time. I think that's how this relationship between someone who's supposed to be helping you and isn't really doing a lot for you, because there is like, and again, it's not necessarily their fault in this case because Lyme disease is hard to diagnose, but they're wrong about what they're telling you. And that makes you think of them as antagonistic, as the devil. And that's what we're seeing here.
Feel like it's not me, it's the world that's it. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit.
Oh God, this is so good because he takes on the voice of what we call the Joker Ren or evil Ren, right? And here we're seeing it basically. It's not even wrong, right? Like a lot of the things that he's saying are right. And so this is why now I'm starting to think it's not actually like evil Ren. It's not the Joker Ren. It's more like his own internal desires and drives Ren. The one that goes beyond what society wants and is not thinking about what society wants. So now he's saying his real thoughts, what he really feels about the situation. And that's what we're seeing here. He gets so angry he even throws the damn chair, which is just, that's such a impactful decision. A good toss, by the way. But beyond that, he says it's not me, it's the world that's sick. Because internally he's thinking, what I'm trying to do is trying to change the world for the better, but there's so many people just making moves that don't make sense, that harm others, that make people feel worse, that make it worse for survival. Quite literally, because he goes, we consume, like, let me go back just to hear that. Well, I won't go back, but he says we consume, we basically destroy the world. We're like a parasite, right? We're like a parasite on the earth. Even when science says that we don't understand that. And I think this is kind of a lot of different topics that this could be. That one is pointing to, like, these medicines are not necessarily helping us get over it entirely. It's just pushing down the problems. And so it's almost like it's not actually, it's just worse for us. And then the other thing is, like, if you think about stuff like climate change, stuff like that, where there's the science to show changes in our, like, atmosphere in terms of the ozone layer, how much CO2 and how much carbon in general is in our atmosphere, and how it's starting to raise the world's temperatures. And we're quite literally destroying the things around us. We're making the world a worse place. This is such a crazy comment on society. Like, and then on top of that, it's like other people suffer and we don't even care. Damn.
We destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit. I'm not sick, we are sick. We are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice.
In the name of progress, we jump off the precipice. So it's basically saying, like, we keep saying we're going to do this to better ourselves, to better ourselves, to better ourselves. But we're jumping off this cliff and we don't know what's on the other side, because we don't know what happens if we keep up with this progress, right? A lot of the changes that we're making, like in terms of, like, the cars that we drive and all that stuff, like, I'm gonna get heavy into climate change. So if you're not a fan of that kind of discussion, you may not want to be here for this. But basically, like, we continue to do the things that make our planet feel worse, or worse overall in terms of the long-term progress for humanity, because even if we make progress, we're actually hindering ourselves in the long run. And that's what we're seeing here. That's what he's saying. Like, we say it's in the name of progress. We say it's to better ourselves, to better our society. And it's not. It's actually making things worse, right? And we're jumping off a cliff, which is suicide. We're literally killing ourselves. But it's more than that, because we say, he ultimately says, like, in the name of progress, we jump off the cliff, which could be we're trying to make ourselves better internally, right? And so we start taking these medicines. And in that event, we actually jump off the cliff, because now all of a sudden we're not ourselves. We're the chalk outline, because we've in some way, shape, or form, we haven't dealt with the trauma at hand. We're just taking these to feel better, but it's erasing ourselves over time. And he gets up here and starts tossing the chair, and look at her. She's still completely normal. He's starting to express himself, but she doesn't care. She's completely detached. And that's how everyone feels, because he's now voicing his opinion, right? Now he's not keeping it inside. Now he's talking about it, and she's still not listening, really. She doesn't care. And that's how he feels as he tries to talk about things that are important to him. Economy, climate, medicines, like pharma, everything. People don't feel like, he feels like people are not listening. Changes are not being made for the better. We're just constantly keeping that same rhetoric of, yeah, we're doing it for progress. Things will get better. But they're not going to get better if we don't start thinking about things seriously. God damn. This is nuts.
We are sick, we are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice. I'm not sick, I'm the virus, you're the virus, hypocrite. How can you sit there with that smile on and tell me that I'm sick boy, looking for a fix, boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the big boy.
Push it down in public, quick pose for the pic. Goddamn. Because yeah, that's what ends up happening, right? Ultimately, like, when you're in this kind of limelight, when you're in this kind of like profession, ultimately you're thinking, I have to keep this all to myself. I can't let others see this necessarily, but I love Ren for this because he almost turns this into a joke, right? Now he's like, you know what, screw that. I'm done with it. I don't want to do that anymore. And so he puts it in the song in it's such a great parallel to real life because you always have to pretend like everything's okay even when it's not. And so now he's kind of commenting that you can't do that. If I did that and I don't want to do that anymore. And that's what's happening here, right? So he, instead of posing for the pic, now we get this song where he's done with that. He's showing us exactly how he feels. Wow. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Boy, sick boy, looking for a fix, boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the big boy. Record label meetings that commodify your gift, boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy?
See, and now it's the person saying, why are you so upset? Don't you want to be a rich boy? That's probably like the music industry, right? Telling him that he needs to listen to them to become big. And he comments on this a little bit later, but he doesn't need that. He doesn't need that because if you're good at what you do, if you are talented or gifted, people will notice. And that's what's happening now. The world is noticing Ren, right? He never had to do that. But most people would say, why don't you just bend the knee? Just listen. Let us do it. Let the music industry carry you. But he doesn't want that because he knows he would change as a result. And in his mind now, it's the demon saying that. It's the devil saying that. And the devil is music, is the big music industry. That's going to ultimately cause him to jump off his own precipice into nothing because his artistry would die if he did that. And that's such a great metaphor. That is so good. Holy smokes.
Meetings that commodify your gift, boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? No.
Oh, and sorry, I didn't even comment on that. Don't you want to be a rich boy instead of a sick boy? Don't you want to be known as the rich boy? But also, don't you want to make a lot of money? And he says, fuck no, because that's not what it's about, man. I tell people this all the time. If you're doing something for the sake of money and you don't even enjoy it, what's the point? I get in some situations you don't have a choice, right? But in terms of like when you're making decisions in life, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, that's the most important part. And that's what Ren is also trying to get across here. He doesn't want his music to be commoditized because then it would defeat the purpose of his music. His music is done for the love of music. If you commoditize it, it's not for the love of music anymore, it's for the love of money. And it changes the impact as well because then he has to start changing the way that he behaves, changing the music that he puts out so that it kind of goes hand in hand with the devil or what the industry expects. And just so good. Oh my God. And the emotion you can see here, because it's like he's being handed these things to sign and he's doing it, but he's almost getting more and more frustrated as it goes along.
Things that commodify your gift, boy. Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? No, industry is cutthroat.
That's so clean because he was like he's basically saying like that's what's gonna happen if I follow the industry. It will literally kill me. It's gonna cut my throat. Not only that, but other people in the industry are faced with this all the time, where you kind of have to change as an artist. And some people do really well in the industry with being able to kind of keep their own creative content, but not everyone, not a lot of people get that luxury, and he doesn't want to become one of those people whose creativity dies in the process just because he's signed with a company. Damn.
Been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke, walking.
Oh, I've been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke, because he's going backwards. He's going against what's expected, right? He's not going the normal route. He's going backstroke. He's going what people wouldn't expect. And it's doing bits. It's getting stuff done. He's getting noticed now because he stayed true to himself. And when he stayed true to that music, now people are starting to pay attention. If he hadn't done that, he might have been nothing. He might not, he might have blown up even more, but that's not the point. The point is he himself would have felt like he had died in some small way, shape, or form. And that was something he just couldn't let happen because music, creativity, connecting with people is more important to him than becoming rich. And so he'll keep the label of sick boy. He'll keep that label. If it helps other people, he'll stick with it. It doesn't matter. He would rather take that label and feel like the sick boy than be a rich boy and then not have to worry about that stuff. But then people now wouldn't get the same impact from his music, because think of all of the people that Ren has touched and Ren has helped with his music. It reaches out to so many people on so many different levels. And that's just, it's such a courage to not not bend in that sense and not give up on your own dream and keep sticking it out. And so kudos to Ren for knowing exactly who he is and sticking by it. Honestly, so amazing.
In on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we
The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke, because it just feels like it keeps going, and then when the joke is finally done, it feels like nothing landed. Because if you keep persisting in this nature where you're doing something just for the sake of money or just for the sake of doing it and not doing what's true to you, at the end of the day, it's a bad joke, right? It's not true to self. And look, now it's like if the industry, I'm assuming, is tying him up here. Let's play out a little bit. And I love that now it's looking at like rapping with a slit throat, because that's how he would feel if he had joined the music industry or said yes to that. Damn. And the other way to view that is, even if the industry thought he would die without them, well, now he's rapping with a slit throat. Yeah, sure, you might have thought I would have died, but my music has reached so many people that it is that pain, it is that suffering that keeps people engaged, that helps people connect, and that makes my music spread wider and wider. Damn.
The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told.
Oh, as the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. And that's going back to what I was talking about earlier, where like society has certain things set out for us and what we're supposed to do. Always be happy. Always kind of like, even when you look at, even beyond society, looking at like stuff like Instagram, like when you look at your Instagram feed, there's never anyone, not usually anyone, that is like, oh, my life is not going well, this is hurtful, this is like, there's not really someone exposing their soul or their pains. And it's starting to happen now more and more often as this kind of revolution of emotion starts to happen. But in most cases, we look at the world around us, and everyone kind of falls into these lines where it's like, yeah, as long as you stay in this line, you're fine, and listen to what you're told, and you'll be okay. But doing that isn't always necessarily good for you or good for society as a whole. It helps the people on top, and this is what his comment is on. It's almost like now he's commenting on economy, saying basically like the people at the top, they're saying, yeah, stay in your place, don't try to rise above it, just stay in your lane. And that's why he's stuck in that seat, and the devil is basically, or the demon is basically like walking around, like making sure he doesn't get up, and he looks scared in that seat. It's because ultimately, if you try to resist, you try to stand up, that goes horribly wrong. And that's partly why people don't do it, but it's necessary at times, right? Society is built off of expectations and moralities that are pushed to us. Usually it's supposed to be for the good of the group, but nowadays, especially with like, when we think about like consumerism, nowadays it's more like you have to you end up kind of giving money to these big corporations who keep making more and more money off the backs of the workers. And that's what he's trying to comment on here. And it would have been the same for him if he worked for the industry. The industry would have made money and it would have been great, and he would have probably made money too, but he would have lost part of himself. And there's so many layers to this video. It's so good. And to follow this up after Higher End, like, man, it's like now I get a better understanding that of what that devil inside him was. It's actually more like the drives and internal thoughts that don't necessarily conform to society. And so in a way, it wasn't even necessarily wrong in some of the things that it was saying. It kept saying that you keep pushing, you keep getting pushed these medicines and staying in your place, or staying in where you think other people think you should be, but that's wrong for you. And so in a way it kind of was. And now I'm almost confused. It's like, damn, like, which one was right? Like, was the angel actually an angel? Well, was the devil actually wrong? Man, so many layers, so many questions.
As the people evolve, we're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. Rape the earth of all resources and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. But when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck will remain?
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Like, we keep pulling resources from the earth itself. Like, when you think about fossil fuels, that's coming from the earth, right? Like, we dig, we find oil, we find fossil fuels, and we use it for ourselves, for energy consumption. And not to say that like, without it, our society would change drastically. But is that wrong? Is that a bad thing? Or are we holding on to progress because we'd be uncomfortable with going backwards? And that almost goes back to what he was saying, where he's making a backstroke, right? He's doing backstrokes. He's going backwards to what's expected. because he doesn't want to conform necessarily to society, because society's views don't jive with what he thinks is right. Because right now we bleed the earth, we use all of its resources, we cannot replenish some of these resources, and over time, in the long run, we're jumping off the precipice into death. Right, this is part of the reason that like a lot of people are focusing on space travel, getting to other places in the in our like solar system and beyond, because sooner or later what we've done to the earth doesn't necessarily actually allow us to stay here, because in some way, shape, or form we've destroyed it, right? And there's not necessarily any turning back from that. We might have already jumped off the precipice, we just don't know. I now I hope that's not true, because there's a lot of research being done that shows we can begin to kind of mitigate some of the effects of climate change, but no one's listening. And that's his point. No one's listening. So until people listen, until people see that change is necessary, we're just going to jump off that edge.
And I'm bleeding myself, I'm bleeding my brain. While I'm bleeding, I'm the reason, cause I'm doing the same.
And I'm bleeding myself, I'm bleeding my pain, and while I'm bleeding, I'm the reason. Damn. That's basically like he's saying like I've been conforming, I've been doing the same thing, and in part it's like I'm bleeding out my own heart. And if no one's listening, what's the point, right? But damn, Ren, man, like people are listening, man. You have such a great way of seeing the world. Your mind is brilliant, and you're reaching out to so many people. You're commenting on so many important issues, things that matter and things that need change, and you're putting it out there for people to see in a way that's being respected, in a way that's being like appreciated. And I love it. And this whole video is just so good. Oh my god, the whole thing from start to finish is just metaphor upon metaphor upon metaphor, and just so well done. At the end of the day, like, be true to yourself. If you see something wrong, talk about it. You know, like try to be as mindful as you can of the things around you, and just so many lessons to be learned. And think about this is all coming from one person in one song. The level of difficulty to pull that off in a way that keeps you engaged and doesn't sound so like, I don't know, like overbearing, or like not like something you wouldn't want to listen to. It doesn't sound like a scolding. This is almost like an anthem now. It's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Well, this needs to change. That's the feeling I get from this song, and it's beautiful. To be able to engage people like that is so amazing. Wow. This is definitely one of my favorites. I think this one's message was so well said, so well like delivered. I can't even fathom any other song that might have had the same impact with the same level of kind of engagement, and just I'm so impressed, man. Again, hats off to Ren. Like, he just exceeds expectations at every turn. Every time I see him, I'm like, well, this can't possibly get better and better, and yet it keeps getting better and better. So hats off to you, man. And honestly, thank you for putting out something that's so real and so relatable to our current struggles as humans and just as individual people, like as a society and as a person. Man, amazing. Tell me what you think. Like, let's hear what you have to say. And if you liked what you saw here, like, comment, subscribe. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I hope it keeps getting better. And I will see you on the next one.